And welcome to Carcon Carne. I'm James Van Osdol, and I mentioned some shows moving forward will be done in the car. Others will be done remotely, as is the case today. The Stranglers, 40 plus years of making music. This band has seen it all. This band has done it all, and they've done it all on their own terms. I mean, back in the beginning, they were the band opening up for the Ramones and Patti Smith on their first European tours. Sonically, their music has never been easy to define. They've defiantly skirted any kind of categorization. Post-punk is probably the best way to describe them. The past year for the Stranglers, it's been rough. Their keyboardist, Dave Greenfield, a guy whose playing was really critical to the overall vibe of the Stranglers, died after contracting COVID while he was receiving treatment for a heart ailment. The band had recorded 8 tracks with Greenfield before his death, and those songs became the foundation for what is their new album, their 18th album, Dark Matters, which comes out on September 10th. Joining me to talk about the storied past of the Stranglers and the Dark Matters future is the long-running bassist, songwriter, singer, raconteur, Jean-Jacques Burnel, JJ. And we started the conversation by talking about the fact that my first time seeing the Stranglers was May of 1987. It was at Metro in Chicago. And it occurred to me, I think after that, they only played Chicago once, and that was at Cobra Lounge like 8 years ago. So we talked about touring the States.
It's car con carne. Let's eat in the car. It's car con carne. And now here's the star of our show, James Van Alstyne.
This is like a TV commercial. You're looking at the cheese dripping.
It was a bit mind-blowing coming to the States because I didn't realize it was so fucking big. And the distances between venues were mind-blowing. However, we decided at one point to split the band in two and drive around and, do the classic road trip.
Mm-hmm.
After which I decided that I didn't want to come to America so often, not because of the people, because they were absolutely fascinating, but just because of the distances, and it was knackering. And I know that lots of our peer group bands decided they wanted to break America. I think that was the expression. But I found the price to be paid was too great for me. Because I saw bands like U2 and the Police and the Clash, they'd all go to America, and then they'd end up wearing cowboy hats and cowboy boots. And I found that I felt a bit uncomfortable with that personally, and espousing completely American things. And I just wanted to retain where I was from, I mean, we owe so much to America in general. Those of us who play music, especially, because, without America, we wouldn't have had rock and roll. So there was part of me, having grown up in the 50s and 60s, we owed so much to America, but some of us developed a chip on our shoulders about the States. So there was kind of a real conflict in me, especially, about trying to make it in America. I thought, well, hold on, I'm never going to be American. I'm a Franco-Brit. I'm a European, and that's where our inspiration should come from, despite owing so much to American music. So there was a definite conflict, and I was trying to balance it out. And my response was not to go there so often,
Well, that explains everything. Was there a period, I mean, during that oral sculpture Dreamtime period, it felt like whatever that next level of success or fame was within reach. What was the vibe back then? Because it felt like, I mean, commercially, you had a sound that could have fit in the mainstream. I mean, certainly Skin Deep and Always the Sun are pop songs.
Well, yeah, they were pop songs. And what's wrong with a pop song? You know, I think Skin Deep was actually number one on the US college charts for a time. But so what? You know, that's only commercial success.
Right.
Doesn't mean you have to sleep with the enemy. You know?
That's exactly right.
But I mean, American audiences are so responsive. It's so I mean, we have come back a couple of times, but not. It's, you know, it. Also, I have to say, you know, I don't know if you're aware, but to come to America now with all the visa bollocks.
Oh, right.
I mean, you know, we have to pay £1,000 each, and for our crew to have the honor of playing in America. And then we have to queue up at the American embassy. And even I had Sir Michael Caine, a few people behind me, in the rain, queuing up to have the privilege of being interrogated to see whether we're worthy or not of coming to America. And in my case, not only did I have that, I also had the added bonus of having an FBI agent inquiring about me, whether, you know, I mean, okay, the classic questions: have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? No. Have you ever been a member of the Nazi Party? Oh, that's okay. And and you know, and I believe Chicago is a hotbed of the Nazi Party in America, or was anyway.
There were some moments. Maybe back No More Heroes.
I know my
era.
history.
Yeah,
I've seen the Blues Brothers movie.
Exactly. That's all you need to know. Illinois Nazis. That's it.
So you know, they actually dredged up some a riot I was involved in 40 years ago in France, and it came up on their screen. So well done, that agent.
Wow.
Anyway, it's all the hoops that you have to jump through, and I doubt it if American musicians have the same hoops to jump through when it's reciprocated when they come over to Europe, you know.
Sure. And I mean, you're starting a tour in the hole if you come overseas. I mean, you're already like behind. You're already in the red, which is. Well,
yeah, I mean, okay, you know, fortunately, that's the least of our worries, but it's made it more increasingly difficult.
Sure.
And so that kind of distracts from the excitement of going somewhere, you know, like anyway. But anyway.
So here we are in the present, JJ. Dark Matters comes out on September 10th. You know, last year was a horrific year for all of us, a horrific year for the Stranglers. Dave Greenfield passed. Terrible. The fact that you guys had 8 songs in the can with Dave heading into this album seems like a real gift. And how great is it to be able to get these songs out into the universe now?
Well, my first thought was when Dave passed away I only had one thought. I mean, we had loads of tours lined up worldwide. And I cast all that out. And my only thought was to complete the project for us and for Dave, actually, for our mental well-being. So that was what drove us through the confinements. And now I can happily say it's complete. Have you had a chance to listen to the work?
I have. In fact, the first song on the album, Water, this to me, I mean, this is such a great reintroduction to the Stranglers. There's a nice gradual build to it. And then there's those keys. I mean, there's Dave's signature right there. I mean, that to me is like such a great, we're the Stranglers, we're back. Here you go.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I'm very pleased about this collection of ideas. I mean, they do stretch back a while, because Water, we started that during the Arab Spring, because Water's, a metaphor for democracy, which brings me very neatly onto another subject, if you don't mind me going off at a tangent.
It's a podcast.
For years, we've been hearing the mantra, bringing democracy to the world, and especially the Americans have thought this was a good thing to do. I'm not so sure, because it works in America-ish, it works in Europe-ish. However, trying to bring it to people who've never had an inkling of it is fucking disastrous. And look what's happening as we speak in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
We think that it's the be all and end all, and we're going to give this wonderful thing that we have to the rest of the world. It ain't going to work. And since 9/11, we've been, repeating the mantra, bring freedom, democracy to these people. Ain't going to work. And we've been doing this for centuries, actually. The Brits and the Europeans did it with Africa, imposing our values on the rest of the world. Hopefully this is a salient lesson that we were better off with Saddam Hussein in power and Gaddafi in power. I mean, the vested interests, the West,
mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about altruistic, trying to bring what we think is a better system of government.
Right.
We have to come back from imposing, whether it's Christianity in the past or democracy, we have to come back from that and think it through. It's fine for us, but not necessary for other peoples. And look at the can of worms we've opened up since invading Iraq.
I got to a point, I've said this before, especially last year, I got to a point where I couldn't look at the news. It was just too overwhelming for me.
Mind you, having said that, it was probably just as depressing 2,000 years ago, but they didn't have instant access to
that's it. It's that fire hose of information coming your way.
Yeah, it's over the top. I think it was an Englishman who invented the internet, and I think he's created a Frankenstein's monster. But hey, we're talking on it.
I was about to say there are pluses. My ability to talk to you somewhere in France in real time is fantastic.
Yeah.
Back to the album. I mean, you honor Dave, and If You Should See Dave is a cornerstone part of this record. I'm sure there's a bit of unreality talking about this album, talking about that song, and not having him around.
Well, I don't know how old you are. You look about 40 to me.
This is why the Stranglers are one of my favorite bands. That is not true, but thank you for saying that.
Oh, okay. So what? You're 30?
There, yes, I'm 30. JJ, thank you.
Well, then you've lived well then. I've lost my track of thought.
Talking about Dave, talking about this song, the unreality.
Thank you. Dave was a really close friend, collaborator, buddy, everything for 45 years. So it's a huge hole in my life. It's just, there's a vacancy and no one can fill it. No one can. I mean, even though we're committed to playing in the future, and I think we're invited, there's talk about us going to America again, because we were there 2.5 years ago. We just played 2 shows, one to 10,000 people in Vegas and one in Los Angeles, which was fantastic. I really enjoyed the time there, the short time there. But we've got all these commitments, and there's a huge vacancy in my life, mm-hmm. and in the life of anyone who's interested in the Stranglers. However, Dave did have disciples. And he had disciples who studied every fucking single note that he played. And so, actually met one 20 years ago. So he's going to fulfill our commitments live.
Great. One thing I think the Stranglers never got enough credit for is sense of humor, dark humor, sense of humor. In the song, and if you should see Dave, this is where your solo would go. I love that. That's breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I thought that was a neat inclusion. Yeah. I mean, you gotta, I think in France we call it premier degré. People take us at the first instant or first dimension. But I think even you have to laugh at some of the shit going on in the world, which has been going on well, and that's how we've kind of survived. I think the Russians are great at it. Actually, their humor is so black, so dark, because they got shit lives, a lot of them. That you need it. It's a kind of a weapon, to keep your sanity. A bit of dark humor.
Sure, it's a defense mechanism at the very least.
It's a defense mechanism, yeah.
There's still. I love listening to a song like No Man's Land. Again, the new album is Dark Matters. No Man's Land. All these years later, there's still that edge to the sound, to the lyrics. I mean, the lyrics are bleak, but then going back to Dave, the keyboards add this wonderful texture to it. I mean, these are Stranglers songs. I mean, you're still sounding sharp and true to form.
Well, thank you very much. I think quite a few so far. The feedback is those who've heard it is one French journalist who's known for being quite cynical said, "How come you're a fucking old band?" French equivalent of you're a fucking old band. How come you're sounding so fresh? I said, you cheeky bastard. Well, why not? What's the problem? He said, well, you're a bunch of old cunts, aren't you? And you're playing sounding fresh. I didn't. Je ne comprends pas. I didn't understand what I was trying to.
You're supposed to get better with age. And White Stallion, I mean, it's weird talking about an album that people haven't heard yet, but hopefully they'll hear this conversation and think, oh shit, I've got to hear this. There's such a cool groove on White Stallion toward the end of this album.
Oh, White Stallion is, for me, I hope we've created a new genre of music. It's called punk opera disco.
That's it. I mean, there's that groove, and I mean, the keys sound like strings. It sounds like movie score kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's. I think I hope that'll take people aback.
I love it. And then the end of the album, Breathe. I love songs that build momentum. You guys do this so well. There's just a big momentum build on that song. It seems like a nice way to wrap this album up.
Yeah, I think the order just works. I mean, I know people have got less attention spans these days, and so they listening to an album. Obviously, I'm from a generation. I liked to be taken away for about 40 minutes.
Yes,
whether it was smoking a spliff or just finishing a bottle of wine, or foreplay, activation, and then cigarette at the end. 40 minutes isn't good. And I'm from that generation who really enjoyed listening to an album and not just a lot of sound bites,
Well, I think that's it. People listen to music a la carte now. It's one song at a time, and there's something to be said for that immersive. I've got a copy of Feline behind me. Being able to put on one side at a time, and just you don't skip, you don't cue past tracks. You listen to it 20 minutes aside.
Maybe that's a generational thing. I don't know. We had longer attention spans in those days. Everything has to be instant now.
But there's something to be said for owning a piece of music, owning that artist's vision. And I think, I have a son who's collecting records now, and he's a teenager, and he loves the idea, that immersive aspect of things. So I think to bring it back around to Dark Matters, I think sequencing may be a lost art, but it's so important.
Well, for those of us who care, yeah.
Well, I think you did it. You did a great job. Thinking of my copy of Feline behind me, I was listening to it on my turntable before you jumped on the call. I remember hearing Midsummer Night's Dream or Midnight Summer Dream, excuse me, for my first time, and thinking, what on earth? This is weird and wonderful. And it made me think, as I was listening to it today, the Stranglers have always been impossible to kind of categorize or pigeonhole. You've kind of defiantly bucked expectations or categorization.
Well, that's a double-edged sword. I mean, for the record companies, it was a nightmare because you can't, who do you aim, at? Who do you target? What demographic do you target? And you just, I mean, there should be a sort of, in the folders or in the bins, it said off the wall, sort of, as opposed to punk or heavy rock or country or whatever, sort of. There are people out there who don't subscribe to all these categories and who just want something which doesn't define them. I think a lot of people don't want to be defined or have their music defined.
For sure,
there's enough of them out there for the Stranglers to make a living. But it's uncharted territory. I like to think that we've always aimed at uncharted territory.
I love it, and
successfully, but
thinking about commercial, you're talking about record companies and trying to find a target. I mean, a song like Golden Brown, which had kind of a second act in this century. I mean, the record company didn't hear that one out of the gate.
No. We had to invoke a clause in our contract to force the record company to release it. They said, "Wait, it's not punky. You can't dance to it. It's punk's over, new wave's over, and you're dead." And so we invoked a clause in our contract, forced them to release it. So in their wisdom, they released it just before Christmas so that it would just drown in the tsunami that always followed. Well, I don't know in the States, but certainly in the UK.
That was the case here too.
The Christmas releases and everything. And unfortunately for them, it developed very long legs and became a worldwide hit. So, of course, in their wisdom, again, they said, "Oh, can we have another Golden Brown then?" So we sort of fuck off, We gave them a 6-minute song in French,
Exactly. Now, I mean, Umbrella Academy, Black Mirror, it must be kind of thrilling for you to have new generations getting turned on to the Stranglers.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. They used that. They've been using a lot of old stuff in different movies and TV things over here as well. I mean, look, if you're of our generation who believe in not total disposability of stuff, it's recycled.
That's exactly right. You're doing right by the environment. Since it is summertime, people are walking on the beaches. It's worth mentioning, Peaches is a fine calling card for you specifically.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a indelible opening for that.
Well, it was voted in the UK anyway. It was voted the three most important songs in music. But I think da 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 da. Oh, that's 4. See, that's 4.
One of the 3 most important songs in music. I mean, there was a period where you didn't play that song. I mean, you just were sick of it, right?
Yeah. I mean, what's the point of going through the motions? You have to feel something for a piece of music, otherwise it's pulls the pants off you.
It's a tricky one, though. I remember I was talking about this with Dave Greenfield of Soul Asylum, who didn't play Runaway Train for a couple of years. It's tricky because you, as the artist, you need to feel inspired, but then you have fans coming to your show, and a lot of them might be seeing it for the first time.
I totally agree, James, because people aren't coming, if they pay money to come to see you, they're not paying money to see what you're doing in the future. They might be intrigued, interested, but they're coming to see what they know of you, or some of it anyway. But fortunately, we've got enough material to leave 1 or 2 out, which might be better known by the public. No, I agree. I mean, and you don't want to entirely play all the new stuff because, you might have your artistic arrogance and say, "No, I'm only playing the new stuff, and that's what they're going to hear." Well, fuck them, because actually that's a bit self-indulgent and slightly arrogant, I'd say. You have to. There's a balance. but
For
you
sure.
get it right, everyone's happy.
So 9 years ago, the last album was Giants. One of my favorite instrumentals is Another Camden Afternoon. I still love having that one on the playlist as I'm driving. It's like a perfect driving song.
Yes, cool. I really enjoy that. Yeah, thank you.
So a lot of history, 40 plus years of the Stranglers. I think it's fair at this point in your career to talk about things like legacy. How do you perceive it? Oh, wait, this is the best part of the interview right here. What's her dog's name?
Myla. This is Myla.
Adorable.
She's a Swiss, Berger Blanc Suisse.
Gorgeous.
Which translated means Swiss, a white Swiss shepherd.
Gorgeous dog.
Yeah, she's lovely. She's good personality.
This is the best part of doing these Zoom meetings. I would say if there's a plus side to the pandemic, it's being able to see people's pets over Zoom conversations. All right,
yeah, cool.
So back to legacy. I mean, I think it's fair to talk about legacy 4+ decades in. How do you perceive the Stranglers' legacy?
Well, you see, I'd rather that someone like you, a journalist, an outsider, if you want, an outside observer, defined it and summed it up. All I know is that we're still going. I'm still productive, despite the legions diminishing by the day. We haven't been on trend at all, and I'm very pleased about that. Apart from the very early days, and I think we've been lucky with is not having to subscribe to any latest trends or fashions, and we've been allowed somehow to be creative and not have to fit in anyone's stereotypical commercial, alleys, and just trust, to experiment, and to see how far our limited talents can go. And we haven't had to. Well, do you know the expression, the dog wags the tail or the tail wags the dog?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Well, if you're slavish to commercial pressures, and you're following that, it's the tail wagging the dog. And surely it should be the dog wagging the tail, So that we haven't succumbed to necessary commercial things, and sometimes we created a new commercial for ourselves, but sometimes, and other times we've fallen flat on our faces. But just, I think we've been lucky. I think we've been lucky to have to survive despite not having to be on trend,
Well, I think there's the legacy right there, being successful on your own terms. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
All right, so JJ, the new album comes out on September 10th. It warms my heart. It warms my dark heart that there's a new Stranglers album on the way. Dark Matters is the album. It's fantastic stuff, and truly, we love you in Chicago, and it's an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Come back to Chicago.
We'll feed you. we'll feed you well.
I remember the Metro. I had great times at the Metro.
Oh, of course.
That's just near that baseball.
Exactly. It's a block away from Wrigley Field. Yeah.
Wrigley Field.
That's it. Where the
Famous.
Chicago Cubs play. Famous.
Yeah. And there's an Irish pub near to the Metro. If you're looking at the Metro front on, to the left, there's an Irish pub. I went there with
the Ginger Man or the G Man, which has been there
Jake
forever.
Burns, who lives in
Stiff Little Fingers. One of my few pandemic highlights was Jake Burns played a drive-in concert. It was him and Peg Boy and Local H. They played at a drive-in movie theater, and he played acoustic, which was super cool.
He's a good friend.
He's super cool dude. All right, I'm going to stop recording. JJ, thank you so much.
My pleasure, James. All the best. And